Hola community, welcome to another episode of Blender Today live streaming from the Blender studio here in Amsterdam, in a sunny Amsterdam. We have things to celebrate today. We have 10 years to celebrate 10 years of Tears of Steel, the Mango open movie project. It's been released, it was released 10 years today. And actually, I was checking the calendar. Next tomorrow is gonna be 12 years of Sintel, and on Wednesday the Blender Institute is 15 years old since it was set up. So it's time flies when you have fun. So if you want to have a bit more trivia and see more about Tears of Steel, maybe you need some movie night. Well, Tears of Steel was released in 4K, and I was just checking, and not a lot of people have watched it. Tears of Steel 4K, it's only like 200,000 people has watched it. So maybe you didn't know that it was in 4K, or also you didn't know that there was a bunch of pictures online. I don't know why these pictures always look vintage, like it's a flash or it's only 10 years. But yeah, you should watch the documentary by Ian. Well, the movie is directed by Ian Newbert, but the documentary to me is the best documentary we had in an open movie project. So you should check it out. I think it's on YouTube too, not only on the cloud. Okay, let's talk about other types of celebration. Let's talk about what's new in Blender today, but not only Blender 3.4, but also there is new stuff in 3.3 LTS. So big news if you are working at a studio, or if you're at a TD, for example, at a studio, and trying to adopt Blender 3.3. Well, you may have heard that some time ago Blender parted ways from the VFX platform specification. So at some point Blender moved into Python 3.10, and that broke most of the broke many pipelines of people that were using Blender as studios. So since a few days ago, now Blender can be compiled against 3.9, Python 3.9. So that should make it in line, at least in some way, with this year's VFX platform, and also for 3.3 LTS, because it's a long-term support. It will also support 3.10. So Blender 3.3 LTS should also align with the platform for the next year, for 2023. So good news for studios. But always, well, actually, I was going to point you to a blog post that is not public yet. So never mind. There will be a blog post this week, probably. It's going to be up on code.blender.org. And you're going to see it here in the homepage, talking about the VFX platform and how Blender will try to align to it as much as possible, because supporting pipelines, it's important. All right, that is it. And there's also a few more changes that were done in master, but somehow they got ported to 3.3 LTS because they were minor changes, like OBJ supporting multiple files at once. That looks like a new feature. I think it should have maybe 3.4, but it made its way into 3. Well, actually, it was committed in August 11, so actually it made it, but I didn't get to talk about it before. And the same for SVG, for importing several SVG. That wasn't in the branch, or at least I hadn't mentioned it before. We have a few features this week around the rest of Blender 3.4, mainly around geometry nodes, UI, UV optimizations, and some grease pencil as well. So let's get to it. So first of all, geometry nodes. There is a few new nodes in town, and there is a new way to interact with your assets. So let's start with the new node. there is a series of nodes actually. Some of them are replacements of other nodes. This one is a convenience node that it gives you. It's called self-object node. People that are familiar with coding, you know the self. So the concept of self is going to give you the information of the object in that has the modifier, the geometry nodes modifier. This has been requested for a while, and it makes it so it's easier to share objects, node groups around, especially with assets as assets. So pretty much welcome. Another new node that was added in, by the way, if you download Blender today, even though it was added last week, if you download Blender, you're not going to find the node in any menu. Like it wasn't added here. It's fixed now. I think by the time of this live stream should be fixed. But yeah, if you download Blender from Buildbot, you're gonna get it tomorrow or tonight, depends on where you are. I think it's in around 7 hours from this live stream when the Buildbot compiles automatically. However, you can always search. So if you do search, you can find the self-object node that it just gives you an object. So if you do the object info, there you go, it gives you this. What else? Next, the other node that it's new in here, it's called distribute points in volume. This commit adds a node to distribute points inside volume grids. The random mode uses OpenVDB's point scatter implementation, and there is also a grid mode for uniform distributions. Both methods operate on all of the float grids in the volume using every voxel with a value higher than a specified threshold. The random method is not stable as the input volume deforms, so do not use it if your volume changes unless you want points changing position at all times. So this node, this is thanks to Add that has been added based on a patch of Angus Stanton and based on a patch of Kenzie. So this is the revision, continuation of this patch and this patch. None of the three images none of the three patches has any image, but there is some discussion about it. So we have to dig into the Blender editor, and then we can see it's a random and a grid, and the grid gets a volume, and you can specify the spacing between each one in Blender units, and random it says seed and density, and that is all. Okay, what else? There are 3 new nodes that replace an existing node. The node that is being replaced is the transfer attribute. There were many inconsistencies in that node. It was added back before Blender had fields even, I think. And there are 3 new nodes that are more, they have a better name. There's more clear what they do. Transfer attribute mainly did sampling. So it would like not capture, but yeah, it will take some information, but not necessarily transfer it. Also, he had too many sub options, and now these options have been split into 3 nodes. The 3 nodes are sample nearest surface, sample index, and sample nearest. The nearest surface one is returns an index of the nearest element of a geometry. At the time, I think it only supports meshes, but it can support curves in the future. No, that's a sample near surface. It's meant for the more complex sampling algorithms that only work on meshes and interpolate values inside of faces. The one I just mentioned is the sample nearest, which returns the index of the nearest element. And there is a sample index node that just retrieves the attribute from a geometry at a specific index or indices. I guess because it's a field node. It doesn't have implicit behavior like the old transform mode, which should make it more predictable. In order to not change the behavior of existing files, the node has a clamp option, which is off by default for consistency with the field at index node. If you were using the transfer attribute node in the past, the Blender should convert that into the new system and make all the connections for you. However, this breaks forwards compatibility. What does it mean? If you save a file now with this like you download Blender.Today and you save a file, you can't open this file with all the Blender versions. Well, you can, but it's just gonna complain that it doesn't find the nodes, right? Because you're saving new nodes in an old Blender. So the old Blender, of course, is not going to know about nodes that happen in the future, but it's good to, let you know that if you save a blend file in 3.4, if you will open this blend file in 3.3 or older, you're going to have missing nodes. It's expected, I guess. I mean, it would be amazing if old Blender could somehow, like, I don't know, build a node that was added in the future. If we would know about its functionality, I don't know. All right. Well, I guess at some point, once Blender has, like, I don't know, in other software, in big software like Houdini or like that has been around for decades, I guess most of the nodes are already there. And if you go really down deep, you have maybe code. So you could somehow, if you have a node group that is in the future share as an asset, ship with Blender, and I'm spoiling actually the next feature, maybe it could happen. Anyways, the next addition, the biggest, I would say, the addition of the week or more even, it's a stepping stone towards Blender coming with quality of life node groups that will make your life easier. The commit goes as follows by hands. It says add node group assets to search menus. Sounds simple, right? Well, it's because it is simple actually. In the sense from the user point of view, it's Blender will now take any node group that is marked as an asset in your asset library. For example, let's see my assets library. Did you know that you can do Shift F1 twice and then, well, Shift F1 to go to the file browser, and if you do it again, it will go to the asset browser. That's the shortcut I like to use. You can also go through the menu. But yeah, if you have a user library, for example, I have this library where I have a few materials and I have some objects as well that are coming from the cube diorama asset library that is being published in Blender.org since Blender 3. Yeah, so in this, I actually have some assets here. You can tell by the non-existing thumbnail because I didn't add a thumbnail. But yeah, there's two node groups that actually I took from these assets and I made them into assets. They were just node groups inside of a material. They were a material asset, but the node group itself inside wasn't. So you have to do this first though. You have to open your asset libraries, save that blend file, and then let's start an empty Blender. Let's go to shading. And now you can search for, just like you were searching for a node, you're gonna search for the node group, for the assets basically that you know exist somewhere. And now that one, it starts with blanks, sh blanks. So yeah, basically I can just add them from search and they will show up here. So this is I'm doing it for shaders. I know you can add them from group, but group only shows the ones that you are actually using in that material, right? Now the search includes all the assets, includes the assets that are in any of your libraries, all in there, so you can more easily find them. But also, this means that Blender could ship with some more complex node groups that don't use pretty much any space, right? They're just built with Blender internal nodes, and they could show up in here. So Blender would not be limited anymore by actual nodes, but could also come with node groups. And that's the whole point of well, geometry nodes implementing functionality in small nodes, the building blocks per se. That would be awesome. So what is the difference compared to regular, like these are assets, this is an asset. Well, the difference is that you don't get the selector, the node group selector. It's just like it's like an asset. You can tell it's a node group because of the color and the icon where you can actually go inside. But other than that, it's just like a really like a off-the-mill node. And I think if you show Control H, no, what is it? The options, toggle node options. There you go. If you toggle the node options, there you see some of the under the hood, basically. The method that is used is the append and reuse. So it's just gonna append data to your scene. And in the future, they say that maybe Hans mentions that in the future it could be it could use linking, but for the time being, the best way is to add the one that we know it works and it doesn't mess your setups, which is appending, right? Cool. Let's continue. Is anybody else excited as I am with this? I know it looks simple, but it's awesome. By the way, if you don't have the asset library setup, go ahead, and if you don't know where to start with your asset library, the way I do it is very non-optimized. I just have one big folder where I just drop anything and everything down there, and Blender caches most of that, so it shouldn't be too slow, but I'm not doing it the optimal way and it works for me. And if you need somewhere to start, don't go to Blender.org now because it is under maintenance. There was something going on with the hard drives. I think Blender.org hard drive were like 7-year-olds or something like that. And yeah, we have our best people working on it. All right, other than that, that's it with the, maybe download.blender.org is still working. /demo. Yeah, Blender.org is working. So if you go to /demo, bundles 3.0, there you go. There are a few bundles for you. Okay. That's it with geometry nodes. Let's move on to some Grease Pencil. Grease Pencil got some improvements in the fill tool, extend lines. So now, well, there's been a bit of a rewrite, a cleanup, but also improvement. So improves how the extend lines collision is calculated. So I assume it's more optimized. Also a shortcut, the S key, while extending the lines to switch between modes. The extend factor does not disable the visual aids, the visual helpers. Then reduce some memory optimizations inside, and that's about it. I don't think there is many visual changes because usually they add images, but just so you know, you can use the S shortcut. In Grease Pencil, the reproject operator now has a setting in the review panel, so in the adjust last operation panel on the bottom left, that allows you to tweak the offset parameter of the reprojection. This was possible while drawing before, but not in the operator itself, like not possible to be tweaked afterwards. Let's continue with some user interface change. How is the chat going, by the way? I'm looking at the here at the chat, following. Is everything okay? The audio was fine, and I forgot to check on the thumbs up. I assume now. There's a bunch of hearts, so I assume yes. Okay. But by the way, remember, you can leave your questions in Blender.Today, the Blender community website, where you can ask. Thanks to Ansa for making the blog post, and there are 4 questions so far. I'm gonna try to answer them towards the end of the show once I finish with the changes in Blender's user interface for now. Well, okay, let's go back to the node editor. This is a bug fix, but a much needed one, actually. There was a change not long ago made in the way the wires were drawn, like were curved, basically. If they were too close to each other, basically they were made to look much better, especially when used horizontally, because Blender node editor is horizontal from left to right. However, that brings some issues, and some really big issues. Basically, if you had like a horizontal line, this kind of horizontal lines, the further they were, the lines would extend way too much. And that has been fixed by Leon, paying attention to all the possible variations. And I don't know if you ever run into this kind of curving, when you have the curving way too large in the nodes, in the noodles. Now this has been fixed, so this shouldn't happen anymore, and now it's much softer. And the example that I showed before should no longer happen. So this is before, and this is after. So pretty nice and welcome addition by Leon. All right, fonts, thumbnails. Ever notice how sometimes they were a bit slow to load, and also they had like a lot of information. They have a text and a long sentence that it was a good addition when it was added, but after some after, if you have way too many fonts, it was hard to read at all. So this has been changed. So now it's instead of showing it like this, now it shows like this. So you can actually see more at a glance in a smaller thumbnail. But not only that, actually it shows fonts that were not possible before. Like there were some, for example, this is the emoji font down here, and it was showing just as a regular text, but now it actually shows with the emojis. The same for fonts that have that are meant for other languages. Now they show. Look at this Arabic font. It used to show like an ABC, and now it actually shows what it's supposed to be. Look at that. These are the same fonts, but just properly working, basically. So nice. Japanese, Himalayan, notes and symbols, looks like braille. Even the wingdings. Look at that, wingdings. Cool. All right. What else? They should be faster, as far as I know, and they work also much better when you have the tiny thumbnail preview. Now you can actually see. So really, really nice performance, super fast, and much welcome, especially for users of emojis and fonts from other languages. So cool. Thank you, Harley. This patch has been around for more than a year, and now we made it. So congrats. One less patch in the pile of patches. Next change is it was a recent one, actually. You are not going to see this in today, last night's BuildBot experimental build, because it was just added now, like 1 hour before the live stream. The improvement is in the asset browser. Now, when you use a blend pose in the asset browser using the pose library version of the asset browser, now you can right click blend pose. That was possible before, but now you're gonna see a widget up there to see how far are you. Okay, should it show in which editor? Now I guess it makes sense to show it in the editor where you take the action, because that you are sure that is the case. But yeah, sometimes you feel, well, if you use it from the sidebar though, it's going to use the header, and for some reason it's half transparent. This shouldn't be half transparent, this should be fully opaque. There's no reason to show the, maybe there's something with the video, but it should be fully opaque. No point in having things in the background that you cannot click. All right, speaking of animation, more changes. The next one by Red, the redo panel, so the adjust last operation panel, is now available in the dope sheet and the NLA. This was added actually, I think, time ago, but no, there was another patch which was changing, so some settings will not show because you don't want to have every operator show in the adjust last operator panel, only the ones that have properties to adjust. So that has been tackled, and I guess this is the beginning of having many more operators actually use the adjust last operator panel. In speaking of fonts and thumbnails and stuff, this is actually about thumbnails on Windows. Apparently, the maximum size for thumbnails on Windows is 256 pixels square ratio, and Blender was outputting 128. So it could lead to a bit blurry pictures. Not anymore. Now Blender thumbnails are going to be the maximum that Windows allows it, which is 256 pixels. Another change regarding the file browser, in this case, is to allow the auto increase name support for the output file paths. So you are familiar with when saving a file that you can press the plus and the minus button for the file name. You can now do this for the file browser, apparently, thanks to the lies. Coding again. Nice. Okay, this other change, actually this is, I'm gonna move it to POTPOURRI, and we're gonna talk about now about UV, although it's only a couple of changes and they're related to the same. The next one, in the UV editor, it's now possible to change the grid size to have custom X and Y or U and V rows, numbers, sizes. So there are no images here, but okay, we have Blender here. Let's see. I just compiled, so I should have it. All right, so this is an overlay, and the overlay, there is grid, so you can toggle the whole grid, and then you can show it on top of the image. Fixed subdivisions. This UI is, I'm loving it already with the offset. But hey, you can specify a fixed subdivision, so you can set, I don't know if you see it because of the image. I'm gonna remove the picture. All right, so now you can see it. Now you can adjust the X and the Y subdivisions separately. Nice. But also you can do tiles, but this is for tiles, for like Udemy. I don't know if this is the best UI. Maybe we can work on it, because the popover panels don't have the center layout like this. Usually they have a left to right because of the lack of space in these panels. Usually they are like left to right, so we need to work on that. But the functionality is great. You can now specify grids. Although the snapping, apparently it's on a to-do. It's not implemented yet. Very welcome addition though. And the other change that was introduced is the grid over image. This is not, it wasn't there before. It's an addition from last week, I think. Yes, from Thursday. All right. Time to moderate some comments there, people. I see a lot of things going on here. Is that worth following? Next. Optimizations. There is a number of changes. Actually, this one is from last week. I forgot to mention it. I was doing the live stream in Spanish, which I do after this. And sometimes I mention things that I forget in this. And it's because I jumped into another improvement and I missed 2 of them regarding performance. So the first one, it's sculpting curves performance. And the difference is night and day. So if we play both videos, on the left, you can see, I'm gonna move my mouse to see how it looks. That is not the video that is like, it's not the stream that is sluggish. It's Blender that was like so sluggish. Not anymore. Look at that. It's buttery smooth. It's magic. I don't know what's going on here, but Hans made it much faster. It's a pity though that this is in 3.4 and not in 3.3, because 3.3 is the first release with hair, and having this performance improvement would be very welcome. Although feature creeping, because the change is probably not a one-liner, I assume. But yeah, performance improvement would be nice. Okay. The other change has to do with geometry nodes. The improvement is in the logger. So what is a logger? It's when you are working on your node tree, you are and you have, for example, the timing overlay on. You have to log what every node does and how long it takes to calculate and stuff. And this apparently was having a bit of an overhead, and reducing that, the performance went from a test with many math nodes, went from 720 milliseconds to 630 milliseconds. So should be faster. Okay, we're in the potpourri section already, because it's a bit of everything. I don't usually mention changes that happen in experimental settings. However, this change, if you're doing hair editing in Blender, you're gonna welcome it. So make sure that in the preferences you have, under experimental, you have the new curves tools turned on, because once you have that on and start adding hair, like random hair, you're not gonna see that there is a new mode available. Well, a new old mode, edit mode. It's now available for selections in curve objects. So it's whatever you have selected in the, for example, in the curve mode. If you select random points, for example, let's do some selection. Yeah, I need to change the drawing of the hair, I guess, to be a bit more readable. You get the idea. It's white which means it's on. And then if I go to edit mode, they are highlighted. So edit mode is coming. Very limited at the moment. You can't grab, move. There are no tools, basically. It's not even a toolbar, an empty, well, there is an empty toolbar. It's very useful. It offsets the text to the side. Can I resize it? Yeah, I can resize the empty toolbar. Very nice. But yeah, no. So far, it's helpful. I mean, you can select things, and you can see the points in the that you have selected. So it's coming. You know what else you can see? You can now see, well, there's an internal change in the way attributes are dealt with. I think I mentioned this last week already, that there were some attributes that Blender uses for sculpting, I think it was masks, that are now part of they're generic attributes inside of Blender. The same was done to the face sets. So now you can actually access via Python the sculpt face sets using the Python API. So if you're making add-ons, this will be a very much welcome addition. Speaking of add-ons, if you use the GLTF exporter, there's now an option to export the active collection without the nested collection. So only the topmost or the parent collection. There is a lot of fixes and improvements done in the GLTF exporter. So if you happen to see that the version is like 6 versions more than the one you are using, that's because of all the improvements. Not all the changes are new features. This one is, though, there is an option to reset the pose bound between each action. So it seems to be a bold property toggle, and this is needed when some bounds are not keyed on some animation. So before exporting each action, it can clear it, basically can reset it. And this is more like a workaround, I guess, if you are not keying every bone on every animation. What else? Speaking of add-ons, well, the Amaranth add-on got some features removed. The other day I did a cleanup because I fixed some issues that were like messing the terminal with prompts and things that needed to be fixed. And going through that, I noticed that many of the features in Blender, like in Blender, now replace the features from Amaranth. Like the switch material feature was a drop down in the shading editor that has been replaced with Blender's internal one to change materials, and another one that used to show the name of the current mesh data block or lamp or whatever, but now Blender has context paths. So yeah, actually, it's cool to see Blender getting features that were previously in add-ons, and some other fixes done to Amaranth as well. So if you see the version has changed, that's why. What else? Fixes. These are a few fixes that I find worth mentioning. The Collada importer, it used to ignore vertex normals, kind of a big bug bunny. It has been fixed. So if you had issues with Collada importing vertex normals, that has been fixed. Another thing that I know I've run into in the video sequence editor, when moving meta strips, sometimes it would happen that you would move the strip and the length of it would change. Like it would flicker, it would like jiggle. Like the song by Louis Theroux. My meta strip don't jiggle. Actually jiggles. Doesn't fold. I like to see it dribble. No, it doesn't make sense with the song. Moving into more features, changes. Speaking of things that can be accessed via Python, it's now possible to access the color sRGB property to float color attribute value and byte color attribute value. So you can do something like what you see here, layer data for each get, and you can get the color sRGB. And that it's all. That's all. Yeah, that's all. Is it? Yes, that is everything new in Blender this week. How's the chat? Is everything okay? Tetrapixel, I'm here, I'm late. You're not late, actually. We are, well, actually, I am late. No, you're not late. I am late. Let's go into the questions to try and answer. There's 10 questions, and in Blender.Today, we usually have 10. In Blender community, we have 10 comments per page. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity and try to answer all of them here. Okay. Helch says, hi Pablo, I hope you're doing fine. I also hope you are doing fantastic on this Monday. Earlier today, an issue came up on Twitter. Since tickets for the Blender conference are sold out, yep, I told you last week, if you were watching the live stream, that we were near sold out. And I remember I mentioned it when we were like 50% also. But yeah, it was a surprise to all of us, really. We didn't expect it. We were planning to like announce it like at 50% and 70%, but it went like that. Maybe, well, I did mention it in the live stream, but it was unofficial because I remember having during lunch, it's like, oh, the conference tickets are selling out really fast. And it was on Monday, and that's when I mentioned it. Anyway, it would be great if there was a way to bring people who have tickets but can't attend together with people who would like to attend but didn't get tickets. It's probably too late for this year, but would some kind of classifieds or bulletin board on conference.blender.org make sense? What do you think? Yeah, I guess so. I need to ask the devs here, maybe Anna or Francesco, what are if our system allows it, because we want the conference to, like, each one that has a ticket to have their name on the conference badge. We want this for safety, and yeah, we just to feel better. You know, it's a bit weird if you go say hi to someone and you have a different name. But yeah, we have to check if the system allows it. Probably yes, I would say. But how does it look? How does it look? Is it like a list? By the way, if you haven't seen it in the conference website, we have the complete schedule now that you can access. It's a proposed version. It says that it might change, but that's because people sometimes last minute they need to change it. So it's not completely fixed yet. However, most of the talks are here. You can even click on them and see more information, but also you can click on going, or you can click on the thing if you have a ticket. If you don't have a ticket for the Blender conference, if you can attend, this icon over here, it will be a little heart icon that you can favorite, and it's the same thing basically. You have a filter up here that, because I am attending the conference, I see going, so I can toggle only the ones that I'm gonna go. But if you are not attending it, you're watching it live, because it will be live streamed. The main theater is gonna be live streamed, and the others are gonna be recorded and uploaded. But yeah, we can't live stream everything at once. But yeah, they will be uploaded. The theater will be live streamed, and you can make your own schedule about your favorite talks if you're not coming. What else? Next. When will the blocks remesh node will be in geometry nodes? I have no idea. Is anybody working on it? I don't know. Let's see. Julie Strater, hi Pablo. Julie, how are ya? First time I see you on the stream. Super nice. What is, if you don't know Julie, you should check out her tutorials. You probably know it, it's pretty popular. Blend Creator. Is it possible to create Perlin worms with Blender? Perlin worms are curves randomly moving through space. Curves running, absolutely. You can definitely do this with geometry nodes. Curve, resample, move random position of one of the, or just randomize the position of the vertices using a texture and then animate the texture. I would assume, but maybe there is some physical law that has to be followed. That I'm not sure, but that sounds pretty feasible. Hi, nice live, Pablo. Hunter, thank you, Hunter. A question. There are many improvements for fonts. I wonder if 3D text will support one-stroke fonts like splines, because they are great for building animation, and if we convert them to Grease Pencil, it will be able to add effects with modifiers and Grease Pencil effects. And also, is it too for many language like one-stroke font for Arabic? How does Arabic support now in Blender with all the changes done recently for fonts? Because I know that, I mean, let's search Arabic text. Okay, so I copy some Arabic text. In geometry nodes, let's do some unofficial testing here. So if I do a string, can I paste? Oh, look at that. It actually, that's super nice. Let's add it to, so it is possible to add this string. And what if I do string to curves? And then I can display it. And does it work? Not. Why not? Okay, no, it isn't. So Blender can display it. You can display this, but it can't transform it to curves. That's a pity. And if I change some of the settings, no. Oh, that's a bummer, because you can. What if I add text? No, well, I'll let you try it, but it's a pity though. But anyway, you can. Speaking of regular text, yes, you can get any regular text to become curves. Actually, text is curves internally, so you can use it with geometry nodes and do pretty much whatever you want with it. And once Grease Pencil supports geometry node, which is being worked on, because Grease Pencil strokes will become some kind of curves, and that means we have geometry node support for Grease Pencil. So yeah, it is in the horizon. Has Blender ever had thoughts of doing an animated splash screen, like a GIF or GIF or a WebM? Well, thoughts are always there. It's like, yeah, it would be fun, but Blender is known for being small. Do you really want to have an animation every time you open it? And also, it's fast to open, and you want to use space for that. Like a compressed video, maybe it's not so much. A compressed WebM sometimes it's just smaller than a PNG. But yeah, I don't know. No one actually implemented it, not even for fun. So, hi Pablo, small question, says Sophie. What do you think of something like this for compacting the workspace's UI in the header? So reject all. There you go. What is this? Ooh, a selector. Well, I would maybe, this is a great to have it as an option. Once, like, if Blender could detect that the window reach a point where just things don't fit anymore, then it could show it. Absolutely, makes sense. There is even a patch that hasn't been approved yet, unfortunately, but there was a patch that, you know, when you have a too many options open, like here, for example, there, the black and white RGBA. Well, there was a patch that when you make it small enough, it becomes a dropdown. That would be awesome. We should have that in more places in Blender. I see sometimes people sharing screenshots of a really tiny Blender window that makes me feel like we are wasting too much space. Although if you compare it with other softwares that have this giant top bar and end up with a tiny viewport, Blender's not doing too bad, but I think it could be even better. Once I thought about, what if Blender had like a compact mode? Something that, you know, like an email clients that you can choose compact view, cozy view, or comfortable with more room. What if you had a compact view where you have no margins anywhere, or spacing is smaller? I don't know. Would that make sense? Space is really tight already for some things. Like the icon barely fits in the row, the outline. So it's applicable only in some areas. Actually, yeah, no, there's not too much leeway. Anyways, next change. Hi, Pablo, says Coco. I got a proposal regarding geometry nodes and the user interface. What are your thoughts? Let's see. Curve input type for geometry nodes. Some of you might have noticed after the release of the new hair system, a lot of node groups have been created by the community and even by the Blender Animation Studio team for the purpose of adding effects to sculpt hair. Some of those nodes groups have a float curve nodes to control the strength of noise along the hairs. To access that, okay, so this is the, yes, absolutely, yeah, this will make so much sense. Every widget should be supported inside of the modifiers. Color ramps. We've been dreaming of having color ramps in node groups and modifiers since the inception of node groups. So that is 2006, 2005, 2006. We've been asking for color ramps to be like part of a node group, and apparently it's not so easy. So yes, you have my upvote, but I don't know who could implement it really. Blender Bob here. Hello, you're coming to the conference. You actually have a presentation in the Blender conference. If you look for Robert here, working in the VFX and film industry, on Thursday at 11:30, actually right after Ton's keynote, is the first talk of the wow. First talk of the theater. Nice. No pressure. No pressure. I just wanted to say thanks the foundation for accepting me as a speaker at the Blender conference. It is quite an honor. I'm looking forward to meet you and the team in person. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be more than awesome. Hope you can drop by the Blender studio maybe before the conference to talk about stuff, industry. There will be people hanging out here for an animation workshop. Not as in teaching, as an animation module workshop to discuss the future of the animation module. All right, Pranay Vaidya says, hello, Pablo. I hope you're doing great. I also hope you're doing fantastic. The awesome Blender developers at the Blender headquarters should solve this arbitrary random bone roll as soon as possible. It fits a bug, please report it. Anything that is weird and random should be... do you even have a bug report? If not, please report the bug. Expecting developers to fix things usually comes with a bug report. Otherwise, it's hard to keep track of those things. Maybe it has been reported in the past and maybe it's impossible to fix for whatever reason. Next, Glenn asks, hi Pablo, just a question about the default cube. If I delete just one vector point then draw lines to rebuild it with a mesh utility add-on, I can't just draw 3 lines to rebuild the cube. I have to draw 3 full squares to rebuild the cube. Why is that? I am a bit lost. The last update was great and make it so the shapes close properly now though. An amazing update. Can you tell us a bit about the built-in operator EdgeNet fill? Sorry, I'm not familiar with this. If there's maybe go in Blender chat, ask in the modeling workflow channel. But if I rebuild the default cube, I can't just draw 3 lines to rebuild the cube. I have to draw 3 full squares. I have a very hard time to imagine this, how this is visually. Image, please. Other than that, I think I am past the time, and it's been 10 questions, so I think it's a good number to wrap it up here. Let's see, did I miss anything? All right. Let's wrap it up. Who else was hanging out? Decoded. So many people. Compact mode would be 1010, says Julie. So cool. Same Julie, watching and learning. Hans, I think improving one of Harley's long-term goals. Oh, with 3D text. Unfortunately, 3D text, says Hans, uses a totally different system than the text displayed in the UI. Which is then good to hear that Hans is working on Harley, working on tech stuff for so long already. My ideas are just stealing from Zof image. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. There's no stealing, people. Let's not steal things. Let's make something new, right? We have the tech, we have the people, we have the wheel. We have experience, and time has passed. Come on, there should be better ways of doing things nowadays. Maybe that is not too much AI and not too much the craziness that is going on these days. Speaking of days, let's talk in about maybe 7 days. Let's do 7 days. Monday, the 3rd of October. This is the last week of September. October. Is anybody doing Inktober? How is it this year? Are there good prompts? Let me know. Other than that, I think we are going to see each other about the same time, but definitely in the same place for another episode of Blender Today live. What your ear holes. I hope it wasn't too loud. Right, thanks for tuning in. Happy blending. Have a great week ahead. Blend away. And see you again next week. Same place, same time. Spooky month. Really, I forgot. Ooh, all right, bye.